Hello. All right. All right. Best time of day for a chat. That's awesome. Good to know. I'm always trying to figure out like when is it going to work for people? Different time zones make it really tricky. So my kids are just finishing up lunch and I put some of them in charge of cleaning up. We'll see how well that goes. So expectations low, but we're trying it out. All right. Yep, I've got mine as well. Although I suppose now I'm not going to get to drink much of it, huh? I'm going to have to be talking. So yeah, share where you're from. I'm in Washington State, Eastern Washington State, the dry desert part of the state, not the green, lush, wet side of the state. Helena, Montana. All right, North Alabama, and I said Georgia and Wyoming, Ohio. Yay. Too many boxers. I know, I did remember to mute my phone. So that was good. Yay. Okay. Awesome. Good. You can see some other Pacific time zone. It's not as hot this week as it was supposed to be. So that's nice. We're having above 100 temperatures last week and this week. But the smoke from the wildfires, we have a couple in Washington State, and then there are big ones in Canada, Western Canada, that just kind of made the weather really, really icky. The air quality is really bad, but I think it made it less hot. It covered up the sun. The sky was all overcast. Idaho, all right. Manassas, Virginia. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and we still have a few minutes until the official start time. So we'll just kind of chat here for a little bit. If anything goes wrong on the technical side of things while we're going on, you can always hit refresh on your browser. Oh, hey, Kayla. Yay, Kayla's here. So you can always hit refresh on your browser. I hear little footsteps. And wow, 5:30 a.m. That's crazy. Yes, Work the Plan Premium. All Work the Plan Premium members are going to have the opportunity to work through the program kind of live, get some step-by-step extra support and guidance, and kind of do it all together as a community. You know, in January, we did something similar with the Simplified Organization course. We called it the Consistency Crew. And I sent out an extra email to kind of help people be on track, like now do this module, you know, kind of break it down, just do this, this, and this, and just really straightforward, streamlined. You get a checklist, a little extra pep talk. The forums are more active because everyone's kind of engaged and on the same page. So that really helps. So it is included in Work the Plan Premium. So I know a lot of you are already in Work the Plan Premium, and tomorrow you'll get an email that will give you a link to click to join. So tomorrow, all Work the Plan members will get an email that gives the more information about the interval intensive and a link, or a link to click that will get you in. So yes, and that's the thing about both Simplified Organization and Work the Plan. One of the reasons why they're lifetime access courses is because it takes going through the material multiple times to really kind of get it. That's why I put it together. It's like, that was like my third time working through it, and I've gone through them myself over again after creating them. And these kind of live doing it as a community is another way for me to jumpstart it myself again. It's easy to get out of the habits and out of the just system of doing it. And then also life changes. You know, we have different kids, you know, we have more, not different kids, we have the same kids, but more of them are different, and they get different ages, different needs. And so life changes. We move, different house, different job, our needs change. and our situation changes. And so those planning systems can't just be cookie cutter copied over. You can't cookie cutter someone else's way of doing things, and you can't just expect what works now to always now work for you in perpetuity. So yeah, if you've gotten in on Work the Plan but haven't really put it in place, or it's been a while since you've worked through it, the interval intensive is a way to, I think, start off the fall. New school routines. It's kind of all the schedules. Our piano lessons will start up. I know different people's sports thing. All the things will start filling the calendar in September. So we're going to use that last bit of August and all of September to really get our systems. And, really that means the weekly review. That's the big one. To get those habits, particularly the weekly review, really, really solid. So yes, yeah, there's a long weekend in there that's going to totally mess everyone up, at least mess me up. Yes, naps change, all of these changes to our schedules and our needs. I think the more kids you have, and also the younger those kids are, the faster the needs and the situations change. So the more, I like to call it iterating, and we're going to talk about that today. The more iterating you need to do, and that means basically making adjustments. So you work the plan for a little while, and then you stop and evaluate in a really purposeful, clear way, and then make needed adjustments. So moms just have to iterate because of the nature of life at home. And interval planning has, yes, we miss Dawn. Dawn's waiting for a replacement phone. I'm glad she can be on Voxer still, though. So interval planning is a way to do iterating and adjusting in a really purposeful, direct, and regular sort of way so that you don't get way off track. And also, because when things stop working, our default, or at least my default, is to just throw it all overboard and say, never mind, all of that was just a mess or a waste of time, or this doesn't work for me anymore, so I'm just going to fly by the seat of my pants again now. Taking the planning steps interval by interval, weekly review by weekly review, and having those times built in where you can adjust things based on current needs is a way to make it sustainable. And also it takes the pressure off, because it's not like, I have to figure out the way it's going to be for forever, and then you got to super commit. It's more like it's a way to take baby steps and do the most important things now. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about interval planning and what it is, why I think it's a particularly useful way to plan for moms, especially homeschool moms, but I got the idea from what was basically a business planning book. So it's not just for moms, but I took the idea from and pieced it together from a couple different business planning and productivity books. And I think that it really works for moms because of the way things change. Our schedules change based on the fall schedule. It's going to be different from the winter schedule. The kids' activities are going to be different. School's going to be different. And so this is a way to take that into account. Yeah, so I'm just catching up here on the chat box. So we're going to talk about what interval planning is, why it works really well, when you should or shouldn't be doing interval planning, and how. So we're going to try to run through all of that, and I'm only going to keep like half an eye on the chat box. Kind of depends on how fast that moves, but I know there are a number of other people here in the chat box that are part of Work the Plan or Simplified Organization, where I teach interval planning, and so they have experience and can maybe help questions or comments that come up in the chat box. And then I will try to get to as many of the questions underneath as I can, kind of taking them in voting order. So if there is a question that is one you want me to get to, give it a vote, and I'll try to answer at least the top ones. So awesome. Okay. So interval planning, maybe I'll take a sip of my coffee first. Okay. And then put it away so the ice stops tinkling. Interval planning is a way to think of your time. A lot of times we kind of by default do yearly planning. We either do that or probably no planning at all, right? Just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, maybe do some school planning, and that's like a year at a time, at least 9 or 10 months at a time. Or, you know, the new year comes and we think of the whole next year as this big, large thing, and we make yearly resolutions or goals. A lot of times productivity sort of gurus have you make a life mission statement or a 5-year plan or even a 10-year plan. But I kind of like those activities myself, but it's really just guessing. Like that far in advance, we have no idea where we're going. So we might have things we want to work on in our own lives or things we hope to make happen, but that's really too big of a scope to really start making an action plan for. So on the one hand, it's nice, it's good to have a big picture out there, to have some time set aside for that large of a scale, but that's not really planning, really. That's not, and then I'm going to take this step and this step and this step and get this done. It's more dreaming and envisioning what direction you're going, which is good, but as far as it goes, you know, that should be this minuscule amount of time that we spend on that kind of scale, because we don't really have that much, as much control as we would like, right, over that big scale. We don't know what God's going to do in our lives or where he's going to take us. And we don't want to use that kind of, that large of a scale of planning to kind of seize control and say, I'm going to make this happen in my life. We really need to plan at that scale with a wide open hand, because, you know, God will take us where he wants us, and it's probably way different than we are envisioning. But that doesn't mean that we don't plan at all. So planning is a way to get from here to there, and you need to know where you're going, but you also only have this we're finite people, creatures, and we can really only handle a certain amount. We can only wrap our minds around a certain amount of time, and we're going to see visible progress only in a short amount of time. So interval planning is taking the year and breaking it into smaller chunks. So you're not making yearly resolutions or yearly goals, because a lot of times what happens when you make a year-long resolution or a year-long goal is that you kind of start working towards it in January and then totally forget about it. Maybe in June or July or some other time you say, oh yeah, I was going to do that. It's okay, I still have half a year. Then you get to November and you're like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. But then you also have the holidays and other things. And that's one reason why yearly goals so rarely work, because we can't keep our focus that intense for that long. Whenever it feels like you have a long time to do something, you're going to put it off. It's just asking for procrastination. So when we break our time into smaller chunks, we get that time pressure that helps us stay on track and stay motivated, because we don't feel like we have for forever. So it helps us, one, make smaller goals, because if we're thinking like, I have all year to do this, so of course I can lose, 20 pounds or 30 pounds. If you take the common weight loss goal as an example, you might say, okay, so for this year, say I want to lose 30 pounds, and that's a huge amount. It's going to take a lot of focus and a lot of work and a lot of stamina to keep that going. And it's going to be really hard to stay on target all year long. And it really will take at least a year, if not more, to keep that kind of a goal, to meet that resolution. Where if you take a smaller chunk of time, say 6 weeks, and you say, in 6 weeks, I want to lose 5 pounds, then that's enough of an amount of time you can see the whole thing on a calendar, see what other things you have going on and where your temptations are going to be in this short amount of time, and it's actually manageable. And you can see that you're making progress and feel that deadline looming, but still it's a manageable goal to achieve. So that's just one example. Interval planning is for more than just school. I see there are a lot of questions in the question section on making it work with a school calendar, and I do match mine up. We do year-round homeschooling, so we school 6 weeks on and 1 week off. And I had been doing that for years when I also, read a couple business books on planning and put two and two together and said, this is applying that same principle that I've been using in my homeschool to work for 6 weeks and then take a break week to regroup and evaluate and take a break, to life, to my projects, to the homekeeping things, to, yes, weight loss, to other things. It's just doing the same thing, but with life. So when I'm talking about interval planning, school's included, kind of, because I do match mine up, but it's really about the projects and other things that you have going on, where you're thinking of them in terms of chunks of time, like school terms or semesters, or however you break up, however the school year is broken up for you, doing that same kind of thing with anything else you have going on. So it's breaking the year up into manageable chunks where you can make a small, reasonable goal and get it done. So it's flexible and it's adaptable, and it helps us adapt our plans and actually make them work. I can hear quite a bit of noise downstairs. They're going crazy. So I break my year into 6 week chunks for the most part. So 6 weeks on, 1 week off. Sometimes 5 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, depending on how the calendar, flows for us that year. But it's about that span of time where I make goals and work towards those goals. So my chat box stopped. So I hope the chat hasn't stopped, but it's not moving for me. That's probably a good thing. But you can break up your year into whatever kind of time frames work better for your calendar. So somewhere, an interval should be something more than a month, because a month really isn't long enough to get traction. But something less than a quarter, which is often what you see. Well, it's like a semester, or a lot of business planning type things you see to plan a quarter, which is 3 months. That's kind of too long. But somewhere in there, and they don't all have to be the same length, you can look and see what's on your calendar. It might be from this vacation to that vacation. It might be from, this appointment to that appointment that's going to break up our week. You're just taking a chunk of time and having specific focuses for that time, knowing that you'll reevaluate, regroup, have time to catch up other things, because the truth is we just can't do it all. And a lot of times if we aren't intentionally managing our time and choosing what to do intentionally, then we're just like trying to do it all and not really feeling like we're doing any of it very well. So it is kind of like juggling, where, you know, a juggler is not actually holding all the balls to prevent them from dropping. Our goal is to have none of the balls drop, right? And so we try clutching them all and we feel overfull and overburdened and like this one's going to drop and there's no way that I can catch it. But juggling is throwing some up in the air. So you're not actually holding it. You're not actually doing anything about that one. You've just given it some momentum and then you let it go. It's not falling though. You've given it some momentum so it won't fall. And then you're catching another one and giving it some momentum. And then you're catching another one and giving it some momentum. And you can do about 2, right? You can hold 2 at a time. And others have to be up in the air. And then the trick is just catching them before they drop. But it's not holding all the balls and it's not dropping all the balls. It's a juggling act. It's figuring out what needs your attention at what time. What can you give a little push here and then grab something else and give it a little push, but you can really only handle so much at a given time. So interval planning is a way to think about that kind of juggling and to give your attention intentionally to certain things at certain times, knowing that you can't do it all at once. So when you plan this way, you have more focus because one, it's written down. We'll have a written interval plan. And so that helps give you a place out of your head so you're not trying to track it all in your mind. It gives you a place on paper to zero in on what's important. And it gives you a time frame. So you say, okay, I'm going to try this one new habit for 6 weeks. I'm not going to try to build all the habits at once or build all the routines at once, but I'm going to iterate. I'm going to focus on one and then adjust, figure out what worked, what didn't work. But you know, a lot of times when we try a new habit plan, a new routine plan, we try too many new pieces at one time. And then it doesn't work for that first day or two. And then we give up. We just kind of stop doing it all. Oh, could you close the door, please? A little spy. So it doesn't work. And then so we don't do anything at all. Whereas if we take a baby step, we say, okay, I'm just going to put into place this one piece right now. Then I can think about it and say, what went well, what did work, what didn't work, and what change can I make to make this work better right now? And so I have this pause built in where I can think through things. That's what the break week between intervals is for. A little bit what the weekly review is for as well, if you need to adjust, but then you're not constantly debating with yourself in your mind all the time and trying to convince yourself, you should stop now because this isn't working, or you should try a different, that didn't work, let's remake the planner page, right? That didn't work well today, and so I'm gonna stay up till midnight redesigning a whole new planner page. That's something I would do. But this is like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to commit to this for 6 weeks. And then at the end of 6 weeks, I can try again and I can redesign it then. But that'll be with a little bit more experience, a little more practice, I'll have some time to realize, was it just a bad day? Was it just stubbornness on my part? Was it just that we were in a little bit of flux or turmoil or whatever at that time? And I'll have some better creative ideas about how to make it better the next time. Mommy, you guys have to wait for anything, even playing with friends, until I'm done. Okay?
But not so peanut. and he played with Playmobil in his room with me.
We'll take care of even the cleaning up when I'm done. Okay? Can you close the door, please?
Mm-hmm. I can be as quiet as possible.
Okay. She's going to be as quiet as possible, she says. So the iterating happens at the break weeks where you've given the plan some commitment time. And the interval plan is an acknowledgement that you can't do it all, that we can only give our attention and focus to so many things at one time. But when we give our attention fully to a few things, we can actually see progress made. As like when you're juggling those balls, when you toss that up in the air, like you can see it going up. You see progress. And you know that that progress isn't going to last forever. Like you're going to have to give it attention again. When it comes down, you're going to catch it again. But you don't have to be holding it, grasping it, doing something about it all the time. You can see some progress and then shift your attention to the things that are falling later. Nope, close the door. I'll be down in a while. And it also gives you a way to track what you are working on, what you aren't working on, and what might need your attention next. So how to do interval planning. That's my fourth and last point for just talking, and then I'll take the questions that are below. So your intervals don't have to be exactly like intervals. I think I said that earlier. An interval is a vague word, right? Because it doesn't have to be a specific amount of time. Your intervals can be different lengths of time, depending on your year, depending on this season. You can have them be shorter or longer. They don't have to be regular. You might have one break week between the intervals. You might have 2 weeks between longer intervals. You might do like an 8 or 9 week chunk of focus work and then give yourself 2 weeks off. If it works well for your school year, it will likely work well for your planning year also. I think that it's helpful to have them coincide. For a while, I tried having them kind of be off of each other. So I was thinking about like life project sort of things at a separate time than our school break week, but it didn't work as well. So for me, I've found that it works best to have my school terms and my intervals match up. It gives us a break, a pause, and I can reevaluate in between. But if your school calendar isn't broken up into small chunks, like if you're actually trying to get school done or your kids are going to school from January all the way to April, like that is too long. And I think that's one reason why we get spring fever and February blues, is because it's just too long of a time to try to sustain the same routine. It needs a break and some focused changing things up in between there. So, you could have a break week between semesters or whatever, even if the break week is only for your own sake, your own planning. You can make intervals fit your life. They are flexible. It's just kind of a mindset strategy sort of thing. It's not a cookie cutter, like I'm going to give you a planner and it's going to have it already lined out for you. Interval planning is something where you take your calendar and you break it up into chunks that make sense to you and for your schedule. So the way that I make an interval plan is to print out a year at a glance calendar. So at this point, if you're just starting out, you might want it to actually be a school calendar, one that starts in August or September and goes through September of next year. And then what I'll do is I'll put in any known vacation times, holidays like Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, Any big events that I know are on the calendar already, like our church's women's retreat or a fundraiser that I help with, different things that I know I'm already committed to, I put those on there. I look at when we're starting school, when we're going to try to end school and do testing, because our state requires testing. And I just look at what's already on the calendar and then start breaking it up and say, okay, so, you know, we have a chunk here, and this will be an interval, and this will be an interval. And I do an interval even when we aren't doing school. So we take off of school Thanksgiving through New Year. So I call that a holiday interval. And there are plenty of projects to do during that holiday interval. You know, there's Christmas planning, there's extra baking, there's all kinds of things that go just on that one. So it makes sense to think of that as its own special chunk of time. It's its own holiday interval. And then when we take school off in the early summer, we take about 8 weeks off. So that is its own interval chunk, and it has its own kinds of projects, and there might be vacations or day trips or whatever sprinkled in there. But with no school, I have more projects usually that I try to fill in there. So it's a way to break up the year and just think of it not so much in terms of I'm going to try to do all of these things in this whole year, because a year feels like so much time. I can do so much. But a way to think, okay, what can I do? What's most important in the next 6 months? Because really, at this point right now, I don't know what's going to be most important in the spring. Come spring, come March, whatever, I don't know what's going to be most important right then. But I have it broken up so that I know in February, I'm going to have a break week and I can evaluate and say, okay, here's where we are right now. This is what's gone well. This is what hasn't gone well. These are my priorities for this time, for the next 6 weeks moving forward. So it's a way to really make sure the priorities stay the priorities and stay focused right now, knowing that things change and we really can't plan that far in advance as moms in particular. I think that's especially true for us. So I don't know how to make the chat keep going. I know it's going, but it's not moving for me. So I'm kind of scrolling. Okay. Yes. Systems so perfect, nobody has to be good. That's, I think that is T.S. Eliot or Yeats. I can't remember for sure. But they're dreaming of systems so perfect that nobody needs to be good. It's like, let the system just do its own thing so I can do my own thing. It's like, actually, the system is there to help me do the right thing, but it's still me doing the right thing. I can't offload that responsibility onto something that's going to like automatically make magic happen. That is true. A homeschool preseason interval. That's awesome. So I'm going to start taking the questions here. How do you keep track of areas you want to address in a later interval? That's a good one. Yeah, and Kristen has the answer here. She's already been through work the plan, so she knows. Yes, pregnancy and newborn means that things just change. Your energy levels change. A newborn changes like every 6 weeks, what their pattern is. And so you definitely need to kind of be reevaluating for sure and not taking on as much during those times. System's so perfect. I wish. Yeah, my whole simplified organization thing is basically repenting from the idea that systems can be so perfect that I don't need to be good. Sorry, I tried that, didn't work. So how do you keep track of areas that you want to address later and not right now? There are a couple different ways you can do it depending on what kind of planner you are. Digital, do you like an app? Do you just like a notebook? A paper on a clipboard? So like I have a clipboard here I have an interval plan on it. And this interval plan, I've been tweaking this page layout here, and it'll be part of our new interval intensive. You'll get a template. A new template's going into work the plan during this interval intensive. It's coming up. But I'll keep a separate note maybe on my clipboard that has multiple papers, and just have, in GTD, Getting Things Done Speak, it's called Someday Maybe list. So however you want to keep that kind of a list. It could be a bullet journal page. It could be an Evernote note. It could be an actual page. It might be in something like this that has a cover. It might go on a Post-it note, like ideas for next interval. This last year, when I did some kind of year at a glance thinking and planning. And so I put a box for each interval. And things that I knew would have to happen, like, I mean, birthdays, right? Birthdays take extra planning and to-do items. So I put, you know, what birthdays are happening in what interval, because that's a project that's, you know, got to happen. And so I have a head start when it comes to that interval for things that are already needed in those intervals. And then I might jot in ideas like, should this happen? Should that happen? But, you know, that plan totally changed as the year went on. We're in our second set of Sweep and Smile, and that was an idea that I had not had in January. Happened after a conversation that Pam and I had in the early summer, and I just kind of ran with it. So you never know what's going to develop as the year goes on. So those kind of yearly thinking sessions are totally tentative. And then it's each interval where I kind of commit. But so there can be different places where you keep those ideas, but knowing they're just ideas. And it really depends. So in Work the Plan, Work the Plan Premium has actual how to make a planner and use a planner instruction. And there's a section for paper planner, and a section for digital planning, and then for a combo system. And I use a combo system. So Work the Plan comes with instructions for using a plan, any kind of planner, whatever kind of planner you prefer. There are just kind of habits, ways of using the plan that make it work or not. But any plan, any planner can work if you actually look at it is the real key. It's just getting yourself to actually look at the plan, to follow it, to do it. That works with a paper planner or a digital planner or a combination. It works if you do, unfortunately. That's the hard, sad truth. But Work the Plan is all about actual truth. Oh, thank you, Heather's 3-year-old. Okay. So is interval planning for year-round schoolers only? How would you incorporate this if you ran a school year that followed the local school system? Yeah, it's definitely not for year-round schoolers only. In my life, that's kind of where it started, and then I applied it in a more broad way. But if I was following the more typical local school calendar, I would just give myself a planning break week, kind of between terms or whenever they do. So they'll already have, you know, a longer winter break, and then there's the end of the year. So those are the big chunks. And then I'd find at least one, maybe 2 spots in the middle to take what a break week looks like will be different if you're still doing school. But maybe you could take a day off, or reserve a Saturday out of the house, do something in that break week where you can have some mental reset and evaluation time, so that you can have some time to think about what's coming up, have some time to look at what happened, what changes need to be made, what adjustments need to be made, print off new planner pages, or update the calendar, kind of do the general upkeep sort of things Maybe you just take an extra Friday off to catch up around the house or something. It doesn't have to be a whole week off if that doesn't fit into your year, but you can maybe take an extra day out. You don't need a day out maybe every week, but on the break weeks, schedule one in somehow. Get a mother's helper or arrange it with your husband or something. When you know it's coming up ahead of time, it makes it easier to plan for, instead of just getting to the point where it's like, okay, I can't take it anymore, I've got to leave. You say, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take this, reserve this extra, mental reset time, whatever kind I can arrange. I'm going to arrange it ahead of time so that I know that break, I know that time is reserved and coming. It helps me push through to get there, to know that there is time coming up to take a break. I don't have to feel like I'm pushing through for forever, but I can push through now knowing there is a break. And then that break can go on the calendar, and you can have just some kind of reset things time built in. What would intervals look like if your children are all preschool and below? Every day feels the same. There's no taking breaks from the things that toddlers need on a daily basis. That is true. So in one sense, it's the same answer as before with the different school calendar that doesn't have breaks, where you might just arrange a babysitter for one day on that break, break week, to have some extra time to plan and evaluate. But really what the interval plan is for is your own projects. So you're taking a break from your projects and evaluating what it's the deadline for finishing your projects or your focus. And then you take a break and you reevaluate and you say, okay, what's next? So even though there are still meals, there's still laundry, there are still all the daily things, we don't get a break week off of those. But we can say, okay, this is my deadline for, losing 5 pounds, or for finishing the Couch to 5K program. Is that a 9-week program? So a 9-week program, that could be your interval. You say, okay, this is going to be my Couch to 5K interval. And since that's the focus, I'm only going to do this one other thing. Or you say, during this time, I'm going to really focus in on making my bed or keeping my room clean. And other things are going to be hit or miss, but that's when I'm going to zero in on. And then during the break week, you say, okay, how did I do? What's next to focus on? What makes sense to focus on next? And build in the next routine or habit that you want to be working on. So it's really more your own projects, what you have going on. So basically it's for project people. Some people are project people and some people are plotters. And a plotter might not need an interval plan because they just like doing the same thing every day and continue to take those, they just take baby steps naturally. And then for some people like myself who are project people, the baby steps just seem so maddening. But the interval plan for me has been a way to take those baby steps, because sometimes plotting really is the most productive way to live, like the most effective way to get habits into place, to make actual progress. But I want a project. I want to see big momentum. Turning it into an interval focus is a way to turn baby steps and plotting into a project. It's really kind of like a mental trick to help keep my project planning realistic and manageable and focused in on where it needs to be. Let's see, the next one. Oops. Where did it go? I'm having problems scrolling. Here we go. I have trouble taking my N-level dreams and goals and turning them effectively into S-level steps. I feel like a deer in the headlights. So the personality, Myers-Briggs personality, love these. An N is intuitive and into big ideas, and she's an NP personality, so that means lots of ideas. Can see potential and possibilities all over the place. And so it's hard for an NP personality to zero in on what matters and just focus on only that. They like to have a lot of input and a lot of ideas, big dreams. And then, yeah, daily life is really an S sort of thing, sensing, concrete, you know, real. It's not in our heads. The N's, and I am an N, I'm an INTJ, like to live in our heads. But then life happens at the sensing, concrete level. And some people are way better at the concrete than others. So the interval planning really has been how I've done that, because I'm at that dreaming goal intuitive level, but then putting it into a plan. And that's really what Work the Plan is all about, is how to do that, how to take that big scope or the planner page that feels really abstract and turn it into everyday action and focus that feels in tune with what we're trying to do, rather than this whole separate other thing that we're trying to juggle. Sometimes a plan just feels like one more project. And it's like, I can't handle another project, so I'm not going to have a planner. I'm not going to do planning, when the planning should really be helping. It should be a tool used in progress, not one more thing we're trying to juggle. So that is really what Work the Plan is all about. It's really for N personalities, quite honestly, although I know that other types have enjoyed it. I think really it's primarily helps N personality types move into that concrete action steps and actually making progress that's real in real life. And so before I'll try to get to a couple more questions here, but that kind of leads into this interval intensive, which will start next Friday with a kickoff workshop. Interval intensive is a time where a bunch of people doing in Work the Plan, because if you're in Work the Plan Premium, you get to join this for free. It's not extra, it's just a part of Work the Plan Premium. We're going to work through the whole course live over an interval, over 6 weeks. So there are 4 modules in Work the Plan, and we're going to spend 1 week, and I'll send out an extra lesson, an extra pep talk, a printable worksheet that just says, this is what you're going to do this week. Concrete, step-by-step, streamlined, easy to follow. There's going to be extra conversation happening in the forums, because people are doing the same things, thinking about the same things, trying to implement the same things. So we get some community momentum going. There will be reminder texts that go out every weekday to help you keep focused and keep reminded of your priorities and what we're working on. And then every Friday, we're going to do a video chat like this about troubleshooting people's questions and the theme for that week. So there'll be 1 week on the big picture, which is bigger than the interval. That's like the direction that you're going. And then 1 week on putting an interval plan in place. And then 2 weeks on the weekly plan and 2 weeks on the daily plan, that real nitty-gritty level. And throughout that whole thing, really the emphasis is going to be on the weekly review, because the weekly review is where it all comes together. And if you have a weekly review, your plan will start working for you. It's really the magic, planning magic is all in the weekly review. So that's a huge part of Work the Plan, and that'll be a huge part of the interval intensive, is really getting a weekly review in place. If you want to learn more about the interval intensive, there's a green link here at the bottom of the video. It says join the interval intensive. I'm pretty sure it'll open in a new window. So I don't think this chat will stop for you, I think. Or you could click it after this is over, and that has information about what's involved in an interval intensive. So if you aren't part of Work the Plan Premium, you can join by next Friday so that you can participate in the workshop that's happening next Friday for Work the Plan Premium members. And if you're already in Work the Plan Premium, you'll get an email tomorrow with, there'll just be a link to click, and so then your email will be tagged and you'll get all the emails for the interval intensive. Okay, so one more question. How much maintenance work do you do during your break week to ensure that the new habits continue? Do you just continuously build new habits each interval, or do you continue with a previous interval habit so as to cement it before moving into a new habit? That's a great question. And I think I've tried a few different things, and definitely the break week is not usually a vacation week. So it's not like trying to do as little as possible that week, but it's really more taking a break from, for us, homeschooling, but also maybe from any kind of project work or, anything that you can cancel. But really the whole point of working on a habit is that then we keep doing it, right? So you would still be doing the habit because hopefully by the end of the interval, it would be a habit. It would be something you just do. So say for Sweep and Smile, we worked on our morning and evening routines for the whole 6 weeks. That's an interval. And I did that, and I'm still this are still my morning and evening routines that I'm still working on. The goal is to still be doing them even on break weeks, because those are super basic. There have been a number of times where I've worked on a habit. Usually it's an exercise habit, and where it's just been for that, it's like, I'm going to focus on doing this exercise for this set of time to see if that, does the trick for me. And a lot of times it either does, and then I'm done with it, and I'm like, I'm not going to keep doing that. Or it's, it accomplished the goal, and it was just something that I wanted to do for that chunk of time. So it depends on what the habit is. Is it one that you're just wanting to stick with for a short amount of time to see a short-term result, or is it a lifelong habit you're trying to build? And if it's a lifelong habit you're trying to build, then you do keep doing it. And sometimes you might say, I still need to track this next term, even though it's not what I'm really focusing. Even though it's not new, I still need to be keeping track of it during my next interval. That's a decision that you make during your planning session for the next interval. You might say, okay, I'm pretty good with that. I don't need to track it anymore, although I'm still going to do it. Or you might say, it's not really solid yet. It's a good one. I know I've learned enough this last interval to know it's something I should stick with, but it's still hard. And so you'll want to keep tracking it. But that's where that break week is really for that kind of mental break, an evaluation time, a time to think about what happened, think about where you need to go next, and make some decisions moving forward. So I hope that helps make some sense of interval planning. I actually have a whole podcast season about interval planning. So you can visit simplifiedorganization.com/audio to listen to they're each like 5 minutes. So they're great for washing dishes or folding the laundry. Simplifiedorganization.com/audio, and it's season 1 is all about interval planning. And then those are audio blogs. So there are also articles on simplifiedorganization.com. If you search interval, you'll find a number of articles about interval planning if you want to learn more. But if you really want to put an interval plan in place and have a little bit extra hand holding while you do it, then you want to be a part of the interval intensive, which is starting next week for all Work the Plan Premium members. So you can learn more by clicking that green button that says join the interval intensive, or you can go to simplifiedorganization.com/work work the plan, all one word, and learn about work the plan and even see a little sample of it, one of the videos. So I hope that helps. It's been great chatting with you guys and seeing your feedback and your questions here. And I'm also working on another article for Simplified Organization. I hope it'll be ready tomorrow. And I'm going to go through and take some of these other questions and maybe work them in to that article because it's not quite finished. So yeah, thank you guys for showing up. This was a lot of fun, and I'll see you guys later, hopefully next week on Friday.